Welcome to the Resource Nexus podcast. Today we're cutting through the hype and diving into the numbers you don't always see. For all the charts, stats, and full breakdowns, check out theresourcenexus.com. College basketball hype can be a funny thing. Some players get carried by glowing media narratives, transfer portal buzz, or historic program prestige, while the numbers tell a different story. Now, this list isn't meant to take shots at the players themselves. Most of these guys are extremely talented. Even the worst in this group still rank in the 92nd to 99th percentile in my model. But the point here is to highlight how groupthink and inflated expectations can create a real gap between perception and actual statistical performance. In other words, we're talking about the hype machine. But to make it real, we have to use examples. These are players whose rankings I've seen that are vastly different from what my statistical model projects. Some of them might reach the levels the industry predicts. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. But right now, those predictions don't have the evidence to back them up. So consider this our perspective as a counterpoint. Let's dive in. First up, Yaxel Lendeborg from Michigan. Yaxel enters the season with sky-high national hype, yet his production raises some serious questions when you adjust for competition. Some outlets have him ranked as high as number 2 nationally, while my model puts him at number 63. That's a pretty stark contrast. Much of Yaxel's performance came against one of the weakest schedules in Division I, a 351st ranked non-conference slate, and the 11th best AAC. Even against that soft competition and a 140th overall strength of schedule, he couldn't crack a 30 PER. On the defensive end, Lendeborg anchored a 231st ranked unit while logging 34 minutes per game, following a 198th ranked defense the previous season. Yet industry projections peg him as a potential Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. That's questionable. He even had another big beside him at UAB, and the defense was still atrocious. Statistically, other post players posted comparable or superior per 100 stats against much tougher competition. Look, Lendeborg is talented. Michigan's system should highlight his passing and even mask some defensive weaknesses. But the idea that he's a top 5 national player doesn't hold up when you account for context and strength of schedule. And this is coming after my model had him 49th last year, like the highest on that board. So now it feels like people are way over their skis based on the actual resume. I'm not going to read all the stats off. That doesn't exactly make for good radio, but we do have a great graph over on the website. It's an apples-to-apples look per possession for about 10 bigs. Comparing core stats and strength of schedule, you can see how Yaxel Lendeborg stacks up against some guys ranked outside the top 200 by another system. Definitely check it out. Next, Bennett Stirtz from Iowa. The perception of him as a top-tier, top 5 national talent doesn't survive closer scrutiny. His raw numbers are impressive, sure, but context is everything. He averaged 39 minutes per game against the 170 ranked defensive schedule, one of the weakest in the country. Adjusted models that factor in per possession stats, strength of schedule, and minutes place him at number 95 nationally, which is far below the number 3 rankings some media outlets have given him. Stirtz's MVC system is highly controlled, and he's only 2 years removed from second-team All-Conference Division 2 honors, a pedigree that rarely translates directly to top 5 national projections. While he has upside because of the system he's in, I think he's more a product of that system than a true elite-level talent independent of it. If he played for Bobby Hurley or a coach on the hot seat, would anyone have him ranked this high? The narrative placing him among the nation's elite is inconsistent with objective metrics and the quality of competition he's faced. That said, Ben McCollum is an impressive coach, so I'm not completely shutting the door on his potential. But right now, the hype is way too high based on the information we have. Next up, Tatum Connerway from Indiana. Connerway posted strong raw numbers last season, but context exposes some serious limitations in projecting him to a Power 5 conference. His efficiency, a .540 true shooting percentage, came against one of the weakest schedules in Division I, ranked around 200th nationally. Much of his scoring came at the rim against subpar competition, and he struggles with outside shooting and free throw reliability, hitting under 30% from three and just 66% from the line. A high usage rate further inflates turnovers and limits overall efficiency. When you compare him to players who can draw fouls, hit free throws, and generate offense efficiently against top 35 competition, the gap becomes obvious. Despite a great PER, Connerway's assist-to-turnover ratio is modest, and his scoring profile is unlikely to translate the same way against stronger disciplined defenses. Teams can also foul him and send him to the line, where he's more of a liability than a positive. Media narratives placing him in the top 45 nationally overlook the stats and the competition. My model ranks him at number 424, a massive gulf between perception and production. Then there's Tucker DeVries, also from Indiana. DeVries has gotten attention largely from a small sample, 8 games versus weak non-conference opponents, which inflates perceptions of his ability. Some outlets have him ranked as high as number 23 nationally, while my model places him at number 128, reflecting the gap between production and reputation. His success has been closely tied to an unsustainable .473 three-point shooting mark in those 8 games, and no one talks about him being just 30% from two-point range or facing lower-level competition in his last full season. Like Connerway, DeVries is a perfect example of how media narratives and portal hype can outpace actual performance against meaningful competition. He's a good player, but likely not a top 25 one, at least based on what he's done to this point. Alvaro Folgueras from Iowa. Folgueras is often listed as a top 100 player nationally, as high as number 71 in one computer ranking. My model, however, slots him at number 580, suggesting that ranking may be wildly inflated. Much of his statistical success came against one of the weakest schedules in Division I, the 341st ranked defensive strength of schedule, where dominance is expected. Even high PER numbers are context dependent. Performance against weaker teams doesn't automatically translate to success in Power 5 leagues like the Big Ten. His international play, shooting just 23%, raises additional concerns about consistency and efficiency outside favorable circumstances. While he will benefit from Ben McCollum's disciplined system, per-possession metrics adjusted for competition show Folgueras as another player whose reputation outpaces the evidence. Versus a schedule that weak, if he were truly a top-level player, you'd expect him to lead the nation in PER like Oscar Clough did against much better competition. Next, Christian Anderson from Texas Tech. Anderson's reputation exceeds his measurable impact. Some outlets rank him as high as number 42, but my model puts him at number 150. A reminder that volume doesn't always equal value. Just because you're slated to get a lot more of it doesn't mean you can do more with it. In fact, the idea that he didn't with less and less pressure would suggest otherwise. In 35 games for Texas Tech last season, Anderson averaged 30.6 minutes per game with 10.6 points, 3.0 rebounds, and 2.2 assists. Efficiency metrics were underwhelming, yielding a PER of 14.9. Despite a 16.7% usage rate, he barely outproduces teammates per 100 possessions, indicating that his numbers are more a product of a specific role. Now you're asking him to be a second banana driving the team. Coupled with a moderate supporting cast, Anderson will need to carry a lot, and there's little evidence he can independently elevate a team. Then we have Xavier Brown from Oklahoma. Brown has drawn top 100 hype from some evaluators, yet my model ranks him at number 361, a far more cautious assessment of his true value. Last season, he averaged 17.6 points, 5.2 rebounds, and 4.3 assists over 32 games, posting a 0.566 true shooting percentage, and a PER of 19.2. While respectable, much of this production came against a weaker schedule ranked 143rd, which diminishes the impact of counting stats. His shooting splits demonstrate competence but not dominance. Brown's numbers are solid for mid-major competition, but when adjusted for strength of schedule and team context, they don't support top 100 hype. Next, Jalen Lowe from Kentucky. Lowe's reputation is inflated relative to his production. Some outlets rate him as high as number 33 nationally, while my model ranks him at number 151, suggesting that projection is outweighing performance. Last season, he played 32.4 minutes per game, posting a subpar .499 true shooting percentage against the 64th ranked SOS. His low volume and inefficient scoring make it unrealistic to expect him to replace elite production like what Butler previously provided. Even within a strong Kentucky system, Lowe's limited scoring efficiency combined with high-level competition suggests he is overvalued as a primary or secondary offensive option. Turning him into a star would require a level of efficiency he has yet to demonstrate. Cam Williams, also from Kentucky. Williams's hype far exceeds his production and skill set, ranked as one of the top transfers and even appearing in some mock drafts. My model places him at number 818, highlighting a massive gap between perception and measurable impact. He averaged just 9 points per game in 33 minutes in the American Conference, with the minimal contributions in dribbling, creation, or rebounding, totaling just 4.5 rebounds and 1.3 assists on a 144th ranked team. Video analysis shows a low, awkward three-point release and limited fluidity, making him more of a mid-major rim scorer than a versatile wing. In the 2025 free transfer era, relying on a player like Williams as a long-term contributor is risky. His ranking seems driven more by system context and program affiliation than measurable impact, making him a prime example of a transfer whose reputation exceeds his demonstrated ability. Next up, Jackson Shelstad from Oregon. Shelstad put up respectable numbers last season, 13.7 points, 2.9 rebounds, and 2.7 assists per game, with efficient shooting splits and a true shooting percentage of .57. But let's be real, that's not close to star level, yielding a PER of 15.8. Some outlets rank him as high as number 32, but my model places him at number 104, reflecting a big difference between projected impact and actual performance. Shelstad is a reliable rotation player, but any hype projecting him as a primary impact option overstates his influence. Then there's Pop Isaacs. Isaacs is a high-volume, high-risk scorer. Over 8 games last season, he averaged 16.3 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 3.9 assists, but that's a small sample. Looking at the previous year as well, he comes across more as a chucker than a well-rounded offensive option. While some outlets rank him number 90, my model places him at number 251, illustrating a big gap between perception and actual value. Donovan Dent from UCLA stands out as an efficient, high-value guard. Last season, he averaged 20.4 points, 2.3 rebounds, and 6.4 assists over 35 games with a PER of 22.6. Some outlets rank him number 8, while my model places him at number 57. That gap suggests he may be overhyped relative to other elite guards. This was all against competition ranked 73rd nationally. I'm not ruling out that he could be a top 25 player, but the numbers just weren't there last year to justify placing him at that level, at least not yet. Next, Milos Uzan from Houston. Uzan offers balanced, efficient production. Over 40 games, he averaged 11.4 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 4.3 assists with a PER of 17.3 in 32 minutes per game. Some outlets rank him number 13, but my model places him at number 49, a clear gap between hype and measured contribution Like many Houston guards, the system and bigs do most of the heavy lifting, and usually the volume chucker guards get the glory for all the winning. Uzan isn't as bad as some past cases like Caleb Mills, but the numbers don't suggest he's the player driving the winning like the hype would have you believe. PJ Haggerty from Kansas State. Haggerty has been widely hyped, but his numbers suggest some overvaluation. Last season, he averaged 21.7 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 3.7 assists over 35 games with a PER of 22.2. Some outlets rank him as high as number 7 nationally, while my model places him at number 56, highlighting a substantial difference between perception and measurable impact. Much of his production came against weaker competition. High usage inflates stats relative to elite competition. And while his new coaching situation may help, the surrounding talent may not elevate his performance substantially. Next, Tayon Grant Foster from Gonzaga. Grant Foster is another example of overrated hype. Even accounting for injury, his production has been below expectations, as it was in his previous fully healthy years. Last season, he put up 14.8 points, 5.9 rebounds, and 2.1 assists on just 39.9% shooting, with a PER of 19.7 versus the 232nd ranked schedule. My model ranks him number 388 nationally, while some outlets still have him at number 81. That's a clear gap, suggesting narrative and past potential have inflated his reputation relative to context-adjusted performance. Even if he returns to form from 2 years ago, he's still not close to a top 80 player. Then there's Magoon Gwath from San Diego State. Gwath is solid but overhyped. Some outlets rank him in the 30s nationally, while my model places him at number 178, highlighting the difference between perception and actual impact. At San Diego State, he averaged 8.5 points, 5.2 rebounds, and 0.7 assists while shooting 50.6% from the field, with a PER of 18.3. Though respectable, especially against a stronger schedule, these numbers don't justify national hype as a truly elite contributor yet. Wesley Yates from Washington warrants caution. Last season at USC, he averaged 14.1 points, 2.9 rebounds, and 1.8 assists, with a PER of 16.8. Some outlets rank him number 52 nationally, while my model places him at number 129, emphasizing a sizable difference between hype and measurable contribution. While his scoring is efficient, the team's poor defensive rating and system context suggest his overall impact may be overstated. His offensive rating raises further questions. He can score, yes, but his contributions to team success may not match the hype. Next, Jeremy Fears from Michigan State. In his sophomore season, Fears averaged 7.2 points, 2.1 rebounds, and 5.4 assists over 36 games, showing flashes of playmaking ability but continuing to struggle with efficiency and outside shooting. He attempted only 1 three-pointer per game as a small point guard. Some outlets rate him number 33 nationally, whereas my model places him at number 175, reflecting a significant gap between projected status and statistical impact. What isn't reflected in statistics is how hard it is to build around a small point guard who doesn't take threes and has limited scoring with a .52 true shooting percentage. He's a steady facilitator, but far from a breakout performer. More of a role player than a star, and a perfect example of hype exceeding measurable production. Finally, Carter Knox from Arkansas. Knox averaged 8.3 points, 3.3 rebounds, and 1.0 assists per game over 36 games in his freshman season, showing flashes of scoring ability but limited overall impact. Some outlets rank him number 88, while my model places him at number 212, highlighting the gap between projected talent and current production. His PER of 13.6 and 2.5 win shares point to a player still finding his footing, productive in moments, but not yet a consistent threat. Knox's talent and physical tools are clear, but his first season suggested more promise than polish, with his game still developing beyond scoring and rhythm. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you got some good insights. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who'd find it useful. And don't forget to check out the resourcenexus.com for more in-depth analysis. Until next time, check you later.
Cool. Guess we'll see you around.
All right, check you later.
Bye.
Wait, man, why are you always such a dork, man? What are you talking about? Check you later.